looking back now, the Lord was increasing my stamina. There's so often that we feel like, gosh, he feels so far away.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
I mean, I just want him to come close. The truth is, the Bible says he never leaves us. He
Right.
never abandons us. He never forsakes us. And
Right.
so my prayer began to change, and I began to ask for an increased awareness of his presence. My awareness was not where it needed to be, and not where he was inviting me to be. This was not about punishment. This was not about timeout. This was about increasing my stamina so that I could contain more of what he wanted to give me, the more of what I was crying out for.
Mhm.
So Jeremiah 29:11, we all know it, and I actually pulled out my notes. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, plans to give you a hope and a future, not to harm you. Then you will call on me and you will come and pray to me. I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart.
So I was going to chime in, because even what you're expressing at the beginning of the year, I was just praying and had kind of a similar experience where I just was like, God, I really want to know you. Like, I want to be able to know the voices that I'm hearing, out in the news or the public or whatever it is that you? I want to be able to discern, like, is that really you, God, or what's not you? And he really plopped that verse into my spirit. And you will seek me and you will find me if you seek me with your whole heart, the Jeremiah 29:13.
Yes.
And it dawned on me then that sometimes I do allow, like, I'll say, oh God, I want to know that this is from you. And rather than seeking the Lord, I'll go seek other sources, to confirm, like, is this bearing witness with something I'm feeling in my spirit by reading what somebody else is saying? And I just felt that firm conviction when he plopped that verse in my spirit of just like, no, seek me. When you seek me with your whole heart, you will find me. So I just wanted to try.
No, I love it so much, because I mean, I'm hearing this all across, and the faithfulness of God, to just shift our gaze from his hands, what he's able to do, to just his face. And the word seek is actually in the Bible 313 times.
Wow.
And one of its meanings, and its main meaning, actually means to aggressively pursue.
Wow.
And when I began to read the scriptures and I would see the word seek and I would say, to aggressively pursue, man, it changed like absolutely everything for me. Like Psalm 63:1, here you have David like crying out, God, earnestly I seek you, earnestly I aggressively pursue you. My soul longs for you, in a dry and weary place, and in a land where there's no water. I mean, you want to talk about desperation,
right?
But this was his aggressive pursuit of God.
Yeah.
Whether there was water or no water, he was desperate to hear from God, and he uses that, like, I'm seeking you earnestly. There's that same word with absolutely everything. And the Lord began to invite me to a place where, Marty, if you will seek my face, my presence, not just what I can do for you, I will hold nothing back. So, like, Jen, think about how easy it is for us to come boldly before the throne of grace, to obtain mercy, to just bring our requests, to bring our burdens, to just bring all of those things to the Lord, and know that that's our right. He invites us to do it. But I was doing that a whole lot more. That was my form of prayer, a whole lot more than it was to simply come before him and to do what the woman who broke open the alabaster box and just poured that oil on his head and didn't ask for anything, but just ministered to him, just loved on him. Father, I love you, and just to be in his presence. That was when I began to sense the conviction that, wow, I am so good at praying and bringing my needs before him and thanking him for every answer, but to simply just come into his presence for no other reason than just to spend time with him. I began to discover that in that place of worship and honor, the requests that I actually had that were written down, that were in my journal, that were points of prayer, began to be met out of the overflow of that space. And, this is what I really believe that we're being ushered back into. It's not about all that he can do, and he can do a lot. And thank God, he's brought me out of a lot, but to just be in that place where he's enough.
Now, I want to kind of touch on something you mentioned earlier, which was you at first when you kind of came off the social media, you're like, oh, this is great. It's a great weather. It's all these things. And then all of a sudden, a few days later, however many days it was, you started to feel that sense of, I don't know, loss, maybe it was loss. And so what transpired between that moment and then the moment to decide to set your phone? Now, I also want to highlight that word discipline there.
Yeah.
And because honestly, sometimes it feels like a bad word.
Yeah.
And just in any community, like lately, discipline seems like a bad word, like a curse word. I'd really love to hear about your process, like how you worked that out, because I think sometimes we have a mindset of what discipline is versus what it actually is. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, like how that process played out for you.
Yeah, no, that is such a great question, because literally by like the end of the first week, I'm like, I got to get a job. I got to do something. I got to fill this space, right? Because we're so used to being busy. And so part of the discipline for me really was like, so I have two incredible kids, a son and a daughter. They are gym rats. My son is probably one of the most dedicated people I know. He works construction here in Montana. He just like goes all in. He leaves his job site. He'll go to the gym after a full day's work, and he will put in 2 hours. And so
good for
he
him.
gets what it means to be disciplined, to keep his body in really good shape. It's really no different when we're thinking about spiritual discipline. And it always helps me to have something to attach that to, because we can think of the word, I'm being disciplined. And now it feels like I'm in trouble. And I'm
like, oh, I crossed a line, or I'm in being punished, or
Yes. To be disciplined is to bring a sense of order into your life, and to literally, for me, it was like, set my alarm. I'm going to pray. I'm going to seek the face of God. This may be awkward. I don't really know. Maybe I should go for a walk. But before I do any of those things, I just want to go to my room. I want to shut the door. I want to set my alarm, and I just want to honor him. And I would just begin, Lord, I love you. Lord, I thank you. I don't come asking anything of you, but I'm so grateful for who you are and all that you do. If I would run out of English words, you know what? I would just begin to pray in my prayer language. And that would just take off like a river. And then I would stop. And then the English words would come fluidly. And then my alarm would go off. And I'm like, wow, that was 45 minutes. Sometimes I would just start out in prayer and I would just be quiet. I would just feel to be still and to listen. After that, I might go and grab a bite to eat. I'd have some errands to run. I might have some clients. And then I would make sure that, if I had 15 minutes, half an hour, quiet, I want to read the scriptures. And I would try to get most of that in the beginning of my day. Sometimes it didn't work out like that. But you know what? Intentionality is everything. And when you have a desire to honor God and you want to honor who he is and what he's done, and what does that look like? For me, it became very practical. So set my alarm, be intentional about my time, no different than going to the gym. Might not feel like it. This might seem really weird, but you know what? I'm going to do it because there's benefits. And I want to see what it's like What happens to me? And so one of the things that I noticed when I would do that, I was reminded, because I love to raft. And so in Montana, this is like a great time for rafting.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
When the water's moving really fast, and it's a little deeper, it's really hard to see kind of what's going on beneath those waves. So when my husband and I went rafting a couple of weeks ago, I noticed that when we got to the quieter waters, and it's beautiful, like by East Glacier, we go rafting, and there's this place, you know, where it's just like there's canyons on either side, and you could see the rocks on the bottom. You could see fish swimming, and it's so because those waters were still, which made me think of Psalms 23, right? The Lord leads us beside still waters. He restores our soul. Yeah. When things are still, when things are quiet, and we're laser focused, right? We can see better. We can hear better. And so for me, I'm like, Lord, there's something about getting quiet. Now that doesn't mean that there isn't outside noise or that there isn't a demand.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, have you ever had a time previously where you would sit down to do those things, and then maybe there was just, your mind was racing and you couldn't quiet your mind, or the outside distractions, maybe the phone started dinging off suddenly, or how did you overcome those types of things?
Yes. And in fact, when my kids were little, I was doing what I'm talking to you about now. And they were little, and it would be during their nap time. Or I would give them coloring books and, you know, Lucky Charms, because I knew they would eat the little marshmallow things. And it would buy me.
Not like those. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Yes.
No, mine loved that. And so like it would buy me maybe 15 minutes. But now, you know, my kids are grown and my days can be really full. If I have something happening at 6:30 or 7 a.m., I will have to set my alarm and be intentional and be disciplined, because I want to have that space and time. If it means, if I have to get up earlier, then I need to go to bed earlier. Right. And so I literally have to like schedule it in like anything else. This time is the time that I'm going to just pursue him. And what works best for me is in the mornings. And as I begin to do this, what I noticed was oftentimes our relationship and hearing from the Lord, talking to the Lord, bringing our requests before the Lord, so much of what I was doing was transactional. I'm giving you my burdens. In exchange, you're giving me your peace. I'm bringing my issues to you, my questions. You're giving me your wisdom. And that is beautiful. Like if you're doing that, don't stop. But there's an added dimension to this, and not just like being transactional. The Holy Spirit wants us to experience transformational working of his presence. And so that for me, began to happen on such a deeper level, because as I became more aware of him, I became more aware of the things within my life that he wanted to deal with, that he was putting his finger on. And so now there's a transformation that's taking place in my life.